Hello, awesome humans. All right, before we dive into today's episode, I have something I want to ask you. We are nearing a little milestone. In fact, I think this will be the 30th episode of this podcast, and that's exciting. It's a new podcast. And sidebar, reminder to you to celebrate your milestones, small and big. Our brain loves to just plow forward. But when you pause to celebrate, it's actually really encouraging. It gives you the fuel to keep going. So here is my ask. If you are finding this fueling, inspiring, and valuable, please review this podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening on. Please take a few minutes. If you could do it today, that'd be awesome, because when we delay things, we forget them, to rate and review this podcast. It only does take a few minutes. It doesn't take a long time. And your rating and review will help other people discover it. When people are on these platforms and they're searching for podcasts to listen to, the podcasts that have great ratings and reviews are shown to them first. And I'd love for more people to discover reinventability. I'd love to inspire more people to break through their limiting beliefs and grow and thrive in awesome ways. And your review could really help that. So thank you in advance. All right, with that, let's dive in. I want to tell you, I actually had a different topic planned, but I want to talk about how to handle failure and disappointment, because a few of the clients that I work with have recently been dealing with failure, and I've been working with them through it. And I realized it's really hard. And I am no stranger to failure and disappointment. I've launched books and companies and new careers and businesses, and there's always a ton of failure. So it's really hard. And that I do have these really helpful steps that help me and my clients that I want to share with you. So that's why I want to address this topic. I think it's a really important one. And the first thing I just want to acknowledge, and I think this is really important, is failure sucks. Okay. There's no glorifying failure. You know, I spent about 15 years in tech startups. And there was this culture then, I'm not sure if it's still there now, kind of like celebrate failure. And I don't know. I don't think we want to celebrate failure. Failure feels bad, right? When you fail at something, you start to doubt yourself, your abilities. It sucks. And I think it's really important to just give yourself permission to feel that. But as I'm going to share with you, there are things you can do. There are steps you can take to reframe failure and disappointment in a way that they don't block you from moving forward. And that, I think, is the most important thing. So just to share with you kind of what inspired me to do this episode, one of my clients, one of my mentorship clients, someone I'm working with one-on-one, she has spent the last couple months like giving all of her dedication, time, and commitment to leading this initiative for an organization where she's on the board. And this is something that she really had to challenge herself to step up and lead. It was a big stretch for her. And she has really like given it all, like her literally her blood, sweat, and tears. And a couple of weeks ago, the organization put that entire initiative on hold. And they've had some challenges in kind of how the year is going, a leadership change. And so all of a sudden it just was, nope, not happening. Bye. Like, this is not happening. And of course, this was really hard and disappointing, and definitely made her doubt herself. Like, I remember her asking me, is there something I could have done better and differently that they would still prioritize it? And the other kind of inspiration. And so in working with her, I said, okay, I want to share this framework of how to move through failure. And I've also, a few of my clients and actually a few of my friends are in a place of shifting and changing careers. And a few are kind of stepping up for more senior leadership roles and have recently dealt with disappointment of not getting the job they wanted or not getting an interview at a company they wanted, which is also really disappointing. And so I share that with you because we all face failure and disappointment at some point in our lives. And I am absolutely no stranger to it. It's something, in fact, I said this to my mentorship clients, it's something I handle on a weekly basis, right? So I'll give you a really specific example. I speak, right? I speak to companies and leaders, and I have a team that I work with that as opportunities come up, they pitch me, they suggest me as a speaker. And more times than not, I don't get the gig. The organization goes another way. They choose someone else. So like on a weekly basis, there's disappointment in my inbox. And so this isn't something that I just help my clients through. It's something I live on an ongoing basis. And the biggest lesson that I've learned, and this is the biggest thing that I share with my clients that I want you to hear, is that failure sucks, but you have incredible power. And the most important choice that you can make is in the meaning that you give to the failure. That is something that is entirely up to you. And the meaning that you give and assign to the failure determines whether it becomes something that blocks you, something that prevents you from moving forward, from growing in a way that you want to grow, from doing this thing you want to do, or the meaning you assign can actually fuel you, can actually help you to move forward. And that is the most important choice that you can make. And the thing, I want to tell you these kind of 3 steps that have really helped me. And these are the 3 steps I share with my clients. But one other thing I just want to mention is your brain will automatically tend to give very negative meaning to the failure. And negative, not just in a sense that, oh, this is terrible, but what our brains tend to do is they take a data point. I did not get that job. I did not get the interview. The initiative I was working on was shut down. I did not get the speaking gig. And the brain takes that and it makes negative meaning out of it about what it implies about you. So I didn't get the speaking gig. I'm not a good speaker, or I'm not going to get any more speaking gigs. I didn't get the job. I'm unqualified. I'm bad at interviewing. The initiative I was leading was shut down. I am not a great leader. I am not someone who should step up for leading initiatives. Do you see what the brain naturally does? And this is something that I just want you to start becoming aware of. And if you think about, maybe you're handling disappointment right now, maybe you've dealt with it in the past. Think about what is that, like that initial thing, the initial meaning that our brain tends to assign to it, it turns into judgment. I failed at this and it means this about me. And this is the really important piece, because if you allow your brain, remember, your brain has this negativity bias. It's always gonna look for what's negative, and it's always gonna tend to think about the worst case scenario. So we have to step in, and instead of allowing our brain to create these giant meanings of this failure means this terrible thing about me, opportunities, the world, the future, we have to exercise our agency. You have to step in and intentionally choose the meaning that you want to assign to it. So I want to share with you these 3 steps that I use, that I work on with my clients, that really help to move through failure and disappointment. So the first step, I've already mentioned it, but the first step, it's really important to just feel your feelings. This isn't about always looking for the silver lining. I hate that. Failure sucks. It sucks when I don't get a speaking gig that I want. I hate that. It sucks when my client didn't get the job she wanted. It sucked when my client did not, this initiative she was leading was shut down. The feeling sucks. And it's so important to just give yourself some time. I heard this one founder of a startup a couple of years ago. I wish I could remember who it was. And he had this 24-hour rule. So when they didn't get a deal they wanted, everybody had 24 hours to just sulk and be in the suck. And I love that. So give yourself 24 hours to just be like, this sucks, just to be in the suck. And by the way, there's a benefit to this, because research shows that when we acknowledge our difficult feelings, when we actually acknowledge them, accept them, say them to ourselves, we actually move through them faster, and then we feel them with less intensity. So this is actually something that will help you move through it. So first step is just to acknowledge the disappointment, the suck, let yourself feel it. I like putting a 24-hour give yourself a day to do it. The second step is, this is really important. And this is where, in the second step, choose the meaning that you want to assign to it. Be intentional about this. So didn't get the job. Does it mean that you are a highly incapable candidate and you can never get the job you want? No, that sounds ridiculous, right? Well, what could be the meaning? Well, the meaning you could assign to it is, and this is what advice I gave to my client who didn't get this job she wanted, is, well, there are many, many, many factors that go into creating this great fit between a candidate and a role, right? And they didn't give her a lot of context for rejection, just this background. And so instead of going, oh, well, obviously I'm not qualified for roles like this, she chose to assign the meaning of it just was not a great fit. Like, it was not a great fit. There's other things that the company was looking for that is not something that I have. And that's actually probably a good thing, because if they didn't think it's a great fit, probably wouldn't have been a great fit, right? For my client whose initiative was shut down, the meaning she chose is she gave it her all, and it was completely outside of her control. What happened to it. So it has no reflection on her ability. So that's your second step, is really like choose to assign meaning to this failure and disappointment that helps you to move forward. And the third piece, the third step, is actually to find the learning. Is there any possible learning in this failure that will help you to move forward? For example, one of the things that my client realized, who was working on this initiative that was shut down, is she wants to have more ownership of whatever it is she's leading. She doesn't like to be at the whim of, something she can't control. So for her next initiative that she's focusing on, it is something that she has full control over, meaning there isn't some organization that is sponsoring it. So that was her learning. That is really powerful learning, to say, you know what, I want to have more control over this piece. My client who didn't get the job, one of her learnings was she wanted to do a little bit more pre-work, like networking and understanding the role before she applied for it, because she actually realized maybe she could have learned a little bit more about the fit. So you choose what the learning could be. But again, that's the mindset shift, right? So you've acknowledged how you feel. You've given yourself 24 hours to sulk and be in the suck, and that's really important. The second is you intentionally choose the meaning you're going to assign to this, and you choose the meaning that helps you to move forward versus one that blocks you. And the third piece, and this is where you look for, is there anything I can learn from this that helps me to move forward, right? Because that's the part of failure that is useful. Failure has some data. Disappointment has some data that we can learn from, that we can move forward, right? So these are your three steps. You acknowledge the suck. You give yourself permission to feel what you feel. You choose to assign meaning to the failure that actually helps you to move forward versus blocks you. And then you look for any learning in there. And based on what you've learned, you either recommit, you say, you know what I learned is it just may not have been a great fit with this company, but actually I'm really excited for this kind of role. So I'm just going to double down. I'm going to recommit. I'm going to look for more roles like this in other companies where it could be a better fit. Or you could say, you know what, I learned something actually. Maybe I want to shift my approach. Maybe I want to position myself differently. Maybe I want to look for different opportunities. And that's where failure and failure becomes really useful, because it teaches us something, right? But again, the most important thing is, instead of failure being in charge and just letting your brain run wild with its interpretations, the most important thing is for you to take ownership of how am I going to interpret this failure? What is the meaning I'm going to assign to it? Is there anything I can learn from it? And how do I want to move forward? Because that's the thing. You are not defined by your failures. You're not defined by the things that didn't work out. You are defined by the choices you make for how you move forward afterwards. That is something that is part of your character. That is part of who you are. And I hope that what I've shared with you encourages you and inspires you to take ownership of that, to say, okay, this failure, it sucks. It sucks I didn't get that job. It sucks I didn't get that speaking gig. It sucks that this didn't work out, but I am going to choose the meaning I'm assigning to this. I am going to look for the learning, and I'm going to use that learning to help me to move forward. And now you're in the driver's seat. And now you're exercising your agency. Agency is your ability to make choices to create a better life for yourself. And not only does that feel better than just sulking endlessly and doubting yourself and doubting that there's more opportunities that you want, but it actually helps you. It makes us better when we make these intentional choices for the stories we tell ourselves about disappointments and failure in our lives. And when we look for the learnings, because that's how we get better, right? That is how we get better. So I hope you find this helpful. I'd love to hear from you. I always want to hear from you, but I'd love to hear from you. Does this resonate? Maybe if you want to tell me about a recent failure or disappointment that you've been dealing with and how you applied this, I'd love to hear from you. You can send me an email. My email is Nataly, Nataly, at happier.com, and just put podcast in the subject line so I know it's about that. You can also go to my website, nataliekogan.com, and there's a quick way to connect with me. I also always want to hear from you for suggestions for other topics you want me to address. I do this podcast from a place of wanting to serve your highest good for helping you to grow into the future self you want to become. So I love hearing your suggestions. And with that, thank you. I don't take your attention and your willingness to listen for granted. I really appreciate every week an opportunity to, as I say, be in your ear and appreciate your openness and your willingness. And that's all I have this week. And as I always say, I'll be in your ear, or if you're watching on YouTube, I'll be with you next week for our next podcast. Have a really, really awesome rest of your week.